Recently, Screamscape came up with an article saying that they had heard that Flight of Fear at both Kings Island and King's Dominion may be retired soon. Normally, we'd shrug this off, but it is strange times. Hello, everybody. Alongside Don Helbig, I'm Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
Let's start off by giving a shout out to our Prestige members. Thank you, Aaron Bort, 330T, Logan Lipper, Brian Hauser, Little Mac 21, Miss Mandy 1983, Jacob Fix, Stephen Hornack, Damon Barnes, and Eric Grau. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the Prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the videos, exclusive content, exclusive live streams, and hey, some tiers get some free stuff. So hit that link if you want to become involved in Tower Topics.
So, Ryan, this is just the latest rumor of a ride being removed at Kings Island. I think we've seen almost every ride mentioned at some point, since Six Flags started on this rampage of taking rides out at some of the parks across the company. But Flight of Fear being on Screamscape, that's a little different than just your typical, person putting something out there. I mean, this is a pretty credible website when it comes to rumors a lot of times. I mean, they get a lot of tips and things, and their batting average is probably a little higher than most, but I still don't think that'll happen.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it did, but the Screamscape article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says, given that we've seen a number of roller coasters closed and removed from several parks within the newly merged Six Flags theme park chain, a couple of rumored candidates for retirement by the end of 2025 or perhaps 2026 have been sent into Screamscape. At this time, I'm not saying with any certainty that these rides are in fact to be removed, only that this is a new rumor of something being talked about by the corporate office. And then it goes on to, obviously, Flight of Fear is the candidate there. So Don, when you spent your time, I have to give this shameless plug. This is a haunt poster. I'm in the back.
Yeah.
But when was there ever any talk of removing Flight of Fear? Was there ever a discussion of it on the chopping block or anything of that sort?
Not during my time there, not at all. In fact, the only rides that got talked about being removed got removed with the Firehawk and the Vortex.
Yeah. I mean, Flight of Fear, it doesn't seem like it has a lot of downtime, which is a staunch difference from 1996 when it opened. It opened in June of 96, so it was a little late. But times have changed. I'm not sure if it's operationally expensive to run it. I imagine it needs, some sort of hefty crew, but I wonder how much electricity it costs. Like, I wonder if that is something that they have in mind for it.
It's an expensive ride to operate. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It pulls a lot there to run that. I do think that it being an older ride, opening in 1996, so next year it's going to be 30, same as the ride at King's Dominion. I think when you look at what the plan was with Six Flags to remove some of the older rides, it kind of fits that criteria.
Right.
But it is, it's been pretty reliable. There's not many days you go to Kings Island and it's just down for the day. So on that front, that wouldn't be the problem. I think it would just be the cost to maintain it and operate it would be where they would be coming from there. But you look at the Vortex being taken out, and here we are, 6 years later, and nothing is in that spot.
Right.
So without a plan on what you're going to put in that spot in Area 72, I can't see them, wanting to remove that and just having another vacant spot there for who knows how many years. I just don't see that. I think there'd have to be a plan for what's going to replace it. We're not talking about 2025 because that's just around the corner, so there would be nothing that would indicate that it's this year. There's no record of any, demo permits or anything like that for Flight of Fear, not only at Kings Island but at Kings Dominion. So if this was to happen, it would be something that would become known in the fall or after the 2025 season and not be there for 2026. But I really think, without a plan, without something going in that spot, unless the new family thrill ride for 2026 would be going into that location. But then when you talk about taking that out and trying to put it just doesn't lend itself to being ready for 2026. So none of it adds up for me. That Flight of Fear is in fact on the chopping block for sure for 2025, and I don't think for 2026.
I don't think so either. But let me tell you about my fears because if the future looks like the past, which it often does, what they're going to do is they're going to take the coaster out of it, and they're still going to have that building, which means it'll be a haunt. But um, then the building won't be not used. It's used for 6 weeks out of the year. But my concern would be that the trade off would be a really awesome, thrilling looping launch coaster, and in return you're going to get something kind of like what they added at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that family thrill where it's no more than about 15 or 30 feet off the ground. So they got this giant silo, the big spaghetti bowl, but hardly anything is in there, and they've really just sacrificed a thrill ride for a little bit more of a family ride. um and even at that, it's like, I wonder if they replaced it with something like that, if the word out would be, they made Flight of Fear not as good. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's just I think it's the world we live in now because of what's been happening since the merger. That we're going to be seeing these rumors, pretty much all summer.
yeah,
I don't know how many rides at Kings Island, would be exempt from that list, except for maybe, Orion. We're not going to see that. We're not going to, see Diamondback on there. Um, but it's definitely something that when you have a website or you have a YouTube channel and you put that out there as being on the chopping block, I mean, it certainly is going to drive traffic to see what people are saying about it. Here we are talking about it, but only because it's out there. It's something that Kings Island fans have been asking us. Is this true? Are you guys hearing anything like this?
mm,
If it wasn't for that, you and I would not be talking about this for this episode. But it is something that gets brought to our attention, and we've got to talk about it. So I don't think so. And you look around the park. I mean, there's a lot of other rides that I think you would put before that. We've talked about those. We're looking at in Vertigo, Drop Tower, Congo Falls. I mean, that would to me would be the number one would be Congo Falls that would be taken out. But I don't know. I mean, it's not a fun time to be a fan of Kings Island or other Six Flags parks because you're losing some of your favorite rides at these parks, and you're hearing the rumors of other rides that are your favorites at places like Kings Island, and it just makes you nervous.
yeah, yeah. It does, and you just got to remember that it's just stuff. It's just hardware. It's the memories that you had, but at the same time, and we've discussed this before. This was it Project Accelerate? They called it. I wanted to call it Operation Warp
Right.
Speed, but that was the COVID thing. Project Accelerate was about removing old, dated rides and putting in more modern rides. So we're seeing Part A of Project Accelerate, but we can't really judge them until we see what Part B is. Are they going to replace it with? I'm not saying Flight of Fear, but I'm saying King to Ka and things of that sort. Are they going to replace those with something that's a worthy successor, so it's one for one or even an upgrade, or is it going to be, we took out the expensive thrill ride and we're going to put in something a little bit more family friendly that's cheap but cheerful? That's the real judgment is going to be a year or two from now when we start seeing the plan come to fruition.
Yeah, well, Kings Island will not be exempt from the list. I mean, there will be some rides that do get removed. I had somebody that emailed me today and they wanted to know why Cedar Point. Why are they an untouchable? Why aren't they losing rides like Great Adventure did?
Hmm.
They've lost some rides in recent years. So they're not exempt. I mean, it's been happening there. So, they had their ride this fall. The water ride that was retired. So I mean, it is happening there too. So no park is going to be exempt. I mean, there are going to be rides. It's just the reality of the situation that there's going to be some additions by subtraction. You're not going to be adding to your rides lineup. You're just going to be kind of replacing rides in your rides lineup, I think, over the next few years.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that what's happening to Six Flags New Jersey is the same thing that's happening to Cedar Point, though. Cedar Point is sacrificing a water ride and their boat ride that they never seem to understand themselves, while Six Flags New Jersey is sacrificing the entire half the park, you know. So,
A lot of rides there, yeah, and especially when you have that signature attraction with King Dakar that uh, you know didn't really have the same issues that you had with Top Thrill Dragster. I mean, it was a little more reliable than that, but it's just I think the world we're living in right now, with the merger, and they're going to look to, like you said, get rid of some of these rides that are a little outdated and replace them with some more moderate rides. Whether those thrills family, we don't know. I think you need both, especially at a place like Kings Island. It's always catered to families, so you hope that uh, what they take out, if they were to take out a ride that families enjoy, that you replace it with something that's family, not just thrill. So I mean, you got to look at things like that too. We know the Bat has been one of the hot rumors that that was going to be taken out, and I know that that ride has been up for discussion.
mhm.
The corporate team has looked at that, and I know someone at the park, the general manager, he's fought to keep that ride. From what we're hearing, and I think as long as you have people in place at Kings Island that are going to go to bat and really fight to keep some of these rides, I think that's going to help. You got to have that. You can't have uh, a park full of just yes people that are going to say just do what you want. You got to have somebody that's going to take a stand and try to fight for some of these rides so they get to see another year or 10.
Yeah, and it seems like in a lot of cases, rides that were removed, uh, sometimes it didn't seem like it was necessary, like an unnecessary casualty. Vortex comes to mind, you know? I mean, oh, it needed a new system and structure work and all sorts of stuff like that. But, you know, Busch Gardens put the money into Loch Ness Monster to keep it alive. Kings Island chose not to with Vortex. So, um, and again, I mean, we've discussed that it's probably something that they realized that they had made a mistake with. Um, but with that being said, it does seem like a lot of times they try to remove rides under the cloak of adding a roller coaster. So, without Kings Island openly admitting that they're adding a roller coaster in 2025, or sorry, 2026, we may be safe actually.
No, that's going to be exciting though too. I mean, eventually the park opens. Right now is that idle time, so rumors start flying rampant and people get worked up about it. But once the park opens in April, and people get excited about that, and then they're just really looking forward to all the fun and thrills they're going to have this summer, and they start to look forward to maybe seeing some clues about what 2026 might bring. So there's really a lot to look forward to. So just a few more weeks of the of all the rumors, and then it's back to fun.
Back to fun, no pun intended. All right. Well, enough about that. So our consensus is that it probably isn't true. Let's get
No,
there by
I
the
don't think
grace of
so.
God. It is not true because that ride is awesome. But
Yeah, for sure not this year. And if it's going to be gone after this year, you would start to see some things uh, that would indicate that. And I think you would see some filings, some permits to take it out. Uh, I would just hope that that does happen if they are going to retire that ride or any ride in the park. That they don't do what the other parks have done. That they give guests that last chance, to get in those final rides. That they're transparent about it, and it's not something that it's January 5th and Winterfest is closed, and oh, by the way, Flight of Fear is not coming back next year. I think that would upset a lot of people if there's no transparency there.
yeah, and that's been a problem chain wide, but hopefully we're past that.
That's right.
All right, let's move on to a segment we like to call Buy or Sell.
All right. So, Ryan, buy or sell? Grand Carnival will be retired this summer and replaced with Viva La Fiesta, a more cost effective event being introduced at other Six Flags parks.
And then my understanding, it Viva La Fiesta appears to be at a lot of the parks, including the Legacy Cedar Fair parks. That one does not have a parade.
Does
Oh,
not, from
okay.
what we've read on every park that is announced that, there's no mention whatsoever of a parade, which would make that a more cost-effective event. So are you buying or selling that this is going to happen at Kings Island? That Grand Carnival will be retired and replaced with this event.
It doesn't specifically say 2025, so I'm gonna confidently buy. I know that the parade is a huge drain on resources. It's also one of the most fan friendly thing. People love it, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're probably correct. They're probably going to replace it with that, and it's going to be, entertainment and crafts for the kids and food items and stuff like that, but no parade. What about you?
Okay, so you're going to say we're going to see Viva La Fiesta this year at Kings Island.
Well, it
That's what you're
didn't
saying. You're buying
specifically
that.
say 2025, but it said
It
it.
said this summer. Grand Carnival will be retired this summer and
Oh,
replaced.
I'm gonna stick with buy. I think that's
Okay, so you think that's going to
yeah.
happen?
If not 2025, then 2026.
Okay.
What about you?
Um, I think this has something to do with why the events calendar, as of this recording, has not been published yet.
Hmm.
But I think there are people at Kings Island that want to fight to keep Grand Carnival because it's popular with guests. It's something they expect. And I would think that's what the delay is, that there's a back and forth about whether or not it's Grand Carnival for one more year, probably, or it's going to be this other event. So I'm going to also buy Ryan that I think at the end of the day, corporate's going to win out, and this is going to be the event that everybody has for consistency purposes.
Yeah, unfortunately, not every park is set up to have parades. Uh, but if they don't do it, all it is going to be is the guest saying Carnival doesn't have a parade anymore. And Carnival without parade is just food and wine festival.
Yeah, I mean, but it's this event very much is centered around food from the description at the other parks. There's some live entertainment in that with it, but I think yeah, the Kings Island guest. I mean, yeah, I mean they do expect to have Grand Carnival. They've come to find that to be an annual tradition, so I think it's worth fighting for. But eventually, the reason I'm buying is because I think corporate will win out, and they're going to want this event to be at all the parks.
Yeah. And if it's a little bit cheaper, that's what they're going to do. Okay. Um let's talk some Six Flags headline news.
Or what we got there?
So, all aboard, the train for Snoopy's Racing Railway has arrived at Carowinds. It's one of two new rides opening this year in the park's Camp Snoopy Kids area. Charlie Brown's River Raft Blast is the other. Here's the ride backstory. Camp Snoopy's mess hall is fresh out of root beer and pizza, and Woodstock and his yellow bird buddies are creating quite a ruckus. It's up to the fastest and best engineer around to see that the delivery arrives safely and on time. Engineer Snoopy launches out of the station with 0 to 31 mile per hour in seconds and takes riders on a course filled with thrilling dips and exciting wild turns. Will the delivery get to the mess hall in time? Hop aboard to help Snoopy save the day.
I think this is impressive. I saw a picture of the train that was delivered to Carowinds. Their kids area is getting better and better every year, it seems. It's getting more attention by the voters for the Golden Ticket Award. Finished number 4 last year. Kings Island was it slipped to number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think they've got a lot to be excited about there at Carowinds. You know, for families with young kids. Their Camp Snoopy. It looks it has been really good, and it's going to be even better this year. I want to give another shout out since we're talking about Carowinds here too. If you check out their blog, they did a really nice piece about taking their audience behind the scenes, giving them a peek into the maintenance shop, all the work that goes on during the winter. Yeah, definitely check that out at Carowinds. And while you're there checking out the blog, check out everything that's coming new to Camp Snoopy.
Amen. Yeah. Cool. Um, we'll be right back with the listener questions.
All right, first question comes from Brian from Richmond, Indiana. He said, if you could choose one sitcom family from past or present to do an episode of King's Island, who would it be? It can't be the Brady Bunch or the Partridge Family. I think this is a great question.
Yeah. I would, I mean, I'd have to go with my favorite sitcom, Malcolm in the Middle. That's who I would bring in. What about you?
Go with them. Okay. I think Modern Family
Yeah.
would be kind of a fun one to do an episode of King's Island. I think that would be pretty cool. Uh, Now, something really going a different direction, and only because I saw this, with what they did with the Thursday night football, and that is, it'd be animation, but The Simpsons visit Kings Island.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
The Simpsons ride at Universal has them going to Disney and stuff, or it makes fun of Disney quite a bit, which is ironic because
Yeah.
it's owned by Disney now. But yeah, that's the direction I would go. So in the comments, if you were going to have a sitcom family come to Kings Island and film an episode, who would you like to see? All right. Next listener question. Kevin from Ohio. He said, with the Six Flags merger and noticeable cutbacks from rides to full time staff at other parks in the company, do you worry that Kings Island might fall from its status as a world class amusement park and become second rate? That's a good question.
It's another great question. Yeah, yes, I do worry about that. I think it's going to come down to leadership at the park level and how hard they're willing to fight for things.
Yeah. And that's, the whole, Kings Island and its sister parks has been a can't do story in a lot of cases. And that's what kind of bothers me about the past. When Kings Island opened in 72, there was very little to distinguish between Kings Island and Disneyland. Kings Island was, the Flintstones version of Disneyland in the Midwest. Um, and then from there it's just been like, oh, different ownerships and budget cuts and this and that. You had things like Celebration, and now it's kind of like, oh, maybe we'll have a 2 week run in the theater. Um and, and then the Pier Park King's Dominion was the same way. This is going to be the bigger, better Kings Island, and it's like, oh, Busch Gardens is opening a park close. Let's temper our expectations. Um so hopefully this is where Kings Island can kind of shut off the past, as far as, in the face of adversity, it takes the easier route rather than the persistent route. But as history dictates, that's not necessarily the case all the time.
No, no, but it is something that, yeah, I do worry about that, and someone that's been visiting Kings Island every year since 1972. And once you slip out of that elite category that the park has been in
Mhm.
since day one, it's hard to get back.
Yeah, it is hard to get back, and it's hard to regain your reputation and stuff. I mean, how many parks have been good parks and then it turns into, a babysitter's haven? You start getting violence amongst teens and stuff like that, and the park completely falls from grace, simply because it was a better business decision at the time to make it so season passes were $50 as opposed to, whatever else. There's a reason why Dollywood keeps them at 200. All right.
That's
Cool.
right.
Well, over the weekend, as of this recording just a couple days ago, we had a meetup at Scene 75 Dayton, which was a resounding success. Um,
We had a lot of fun there. It was, great to see the turnout that we had. It was great to meet several of our fans of the show. Some of them we knew, just from seeing them at Kings Island, and that, but others we were meeting for the first time. And uh, there was a lot to see and do at Scene 75 Dayton.
yeah, a lot of fun riding the roller coaster and stuff like that. I didn't get to do a whole lot, um, but a lot of it was that we were kind of party hosts, the impromptu party hosts. our field reporter Noah showed up. You may remember him from the Haunt and Lantern episode and a couple Bubble Wand episodes. So we rode the spinning roller coaster together. But that thing packs a little bit of a punch going down that hill, doesn't it?
It does, you know, and I was talking to a couple of the individuals that came to the meetup about this. I really like that coaster. And to me, it was something that if you look at what Kings Island has with the Peanuts Theater that is seldom used a lot of times, you could almost put that indoor there and have a great new ride for families with young children. I mean, for a lot of kids, that would be their first really big kind of thrill ride that they do. I mean, you're right; it packs a punch. It's a lot of fun, something that you would want to repeat, even if you're an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fun the way it spins, and um, so yeah, I think that would be something that I would love to see Kings Island put that inside that theater there. I think a nice indoor kids roller coaster, so the kids would have their version of Flight of Fear in a way. To put it in there, but yeah, I mean the go karts were fun. I know you caused a couple of
I did
crashes.
not cause those crashes.
Well, that's not what people tell me. They said you were kind of driving all over the
Hey, I
place.
was strategic in passing my competitors. But I want to,
They said you were like hosting the show. You're all over the map.
yeah. If by that you mean structured and forward facing, then yes. Um, but I want to give out this a shout to Scene 75. So we actually did not really have arrangements when we were going there. We weren't able to get a hold of our normal contact, who we found out later is no longer with the company. And then their general manager found out we were there, was gracious enough to give out cards to everybody for a free ride on the roller coaster, which was really nice. And then they kind of got us out of a pinch. We were going to meet at 2 o'clock at the Bar and Grill, and there was a line out the door, and it was just like, well, if everybody was going to get food and sit in there, that would be their whole facility. So I talked to him about it, and I was like, do you have like a room open or something like that? And he checked, and they were able to move stuff around and get us a one of the party rooms. So that was extraordinarily nice and very accommodating, and I wanted to give them a shout out because that was just a fantastic experience. We really appreciated it.
Yeah, and the informal Q&A was a lot of fun in that room.
It was. We had a lot of fun with we talked Kings Island, we talked industry, we talked Bengals. It's a lot of fun. And the best part was the memories we created with everybody, you know.
Yeah, it's a good turnout. There was some iffy weather in some parts. I know there was uh, some people that were going to come from more, northern Ohio, couldn't make it because that forecast had ice and snow. Some from Indiana weren't able to make it. So we probably could have had even another 15, 20 people there had it not been for the weather forecast. But we had a really good turnout. It was great seeing everybody and having that chance to kind of interact, with everybody and just have fun riding some of the rides that they had there. And I know a lot of us were all on that cycle with the go karts that you caused the traffic jam on.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. The go-karts were I had never done them at Scene 75 before, but they were impressive. They were pretty fast. You had a lot of control over them. Because you always feel like when you do go-karts anywhere that they're kind of governed, but these didn't really have that feel. So I was
No, they took off sometimes when you would push the gas pedal all the way down to the floor. I mean, it would take off, and they steered really well too. So I mean, it wasn't kind of cumbersome like you see sometimes too on some of those go kart tracks. This one, you could hug the corners if you wanted to. You can make wide turn, whatever you wanted to do. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So thank you, Scene 75. Check them out at scene75.com. The local ones to us, at least, there's one in Milford, Ohio, which is their Cincinnati location. Vandalia is their Dayton location, which is where we had the meetup. And if you are anywhere near the Columbus area, their Columbus location is in an old Macy's, I think, which is like 3 stories tall. Anything you could possibly want, they have in there. It's so big. So definitely give it a shout. And again, scene75.com, and you can find more information. But thank you so much for being such gracious hosts and making our day both possible and easy. It was a great memory, and we'll always like Scene 75 now after that one.
Yeah, it was my first time there and very impressed with it. And the food, I had the wings; those were outstanding.
Yeah, I had a. I didn't really have the opportunity to eat, but I did eat one of Noah's mac and cheese bites, which was really good.
It was nice meeting Noah too. I mean, he did a great job as the field reporter with with Hunt and Winterfest and Tricks and Treats, and we're going to work Noah into the rotation a little bit more this year.
Noah loves the like interactive wands and stuff like that, so he's always a good he's always a good candidate for just demonstrating how this stuff works. And he loves Tower Topics too. He and his little sister Esme are probably the biggest Tower Topics fans. Cool. Hey, but enough about us. Hey, I'm Ryan's. Well, like, enough about us. Then I'm going to say our names. I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.